Stardate 98045.36. Welcome to another live edition of Star Trek Discovery Pod. My name is Mike Garcia, and with me on the view screen is
Mariah Gossett.
Grant
Clyde
Davis.
Haint.
Sorry. I jumped
everybody pull up
ahead.
the doc, please.
You changed it. It's normally me, then Clyde, and then
Really?
Grant.
Yeah,
This is how it was
Yeah.
last time.
you
Oh, well.
start Grant.
Well,
Grant's running anchor. That's
Well,
usually
we
the
have
way it
Mariah
goes.
Gossett, Grant Davis, and Clyde Haynes, and this week we're podcasting live on YouTube, live, and this is going to be a looser episode than usual. If you're joining us for the first time, typically what we do is we review an episode of Star Trek. We've covered all of Star Trek Discovery and Picard, and we'll return to those weekly reviews once Discovery Season 3 premieres. But today, we're going to be discussing your ideas for new Star Trek shows. And we'll also reveal the winner of our poll, in which you picked your favorite pitch from the Star Trek show pitches that we, the pod crew, pitched to you a few weeks ago live on the pod. But before we get to that, I want to remind I want to remind everyone that you can help us raise funds to promote racial justice in America because we believe that Black Lives Matter. We think Star Trek has often shown us how we can use entertainment and creativity to shed light on injustice. And with this in mind, the pod has decided to donate the funds collected from our Patreon for the month of June, as well as individual host contributions to Black Lives Matter, the Austin Justice Coalition, and 401. And if you would like to learn more about these services, or if you'd like to contribute your own donation to our pool, you can go to donate.startrekpod.co. That's donate.startrekpod.co.
do it. That's right. And we're going to be sending our donation at the end of the month on June 30th. So you've got the rest of the month to help us make a nice big old pool of money to donate to all these wonderful organizations. Or you can make your own contributions to those organizations if that is something that you would like to do. We all must do more in our daily lives so that we can make sure we're all live longing and prospering.
Awesome. And again, if you're listening or watching for the first time, welcome. We hope our little pod can offer you some fun, positive Trek based entertainment during this time. And if you like the pod, please tell your friends about us.
Speaking of things you can do to help out the pod, patreon.com/Star Trek Pod is the place to go to make your per episode pledge. Please go and give us $2 an episode. That's what we ask, and it's the best bang for your buck. Because if you give us $2 an episode, you can join us on our private exclusive Slack channel. That's our it's this chat group that a bunch of really cool Trekkies have joined us over there. We share stories, we discuss episodes of Trek. There's watch-alongs that are going on. We have private exclusive little mini podcasts that we'll do here from time to time just for you guys, and it's a good group. We would appreciate you guys joining us, and if you enjoy what we do here, it's an easy way to support the podcast that you love. That is patreon.com/Star Trek Pod.
And if you're one of the incredible people who are watching us live, I just want to remind you to tag at Star Trek Pod or type capital POD in the chat so that we can see your comments if you want us to mention your comment or if you have a question for us. So just tag us at Star Trek Pod or type capital P, capital O, capital D in the chat.
Okay, so we've all been waiting for a few weeks to find out what you, the listeners, picked as your favorite host pitch for a new Star Trek show. So, just to quickly recap before we get into who won or who's getting greenlit and who's winning the big prize of nothing today, um, we, the pod crew, independently came up with our own pitches for new Star Trek shows, and we presented them on the live pod a few weeks ago. And we set up a poll for you to vote for your favorite. And before we announce the winner, let's go ahead and recap the pitches really quickly. And Clyde, I think you went last time. So do you want to start?
I'll be happy to start. So, Star Trek Harmony is a courtroom drama set in Star Trek Federation space. So it gives you an idea of like Law and Order. JAG meets Star Trek would be the tagline.
Right on. Grant, what was your show?
That was your recap? That was so quick.
It's
supposed to be quick.
It's
a
supposed to be
recap.
quick. It's a log line.
All right.
It's not a pitch.
Elevator
Mine was
pitch.
Mine was initially called Star Trek Omega or something like that, Omega Starbase. I don't know. It was a terrible name for it.
Star
I
Trek
would
Omega.
change it to something like Star Trek Through Time. Also terrible. I don't know. My pitch was essentially after the USS Discovery mysteriously vanishes, an elite group of scientists from across the galaxy are assembled by Starfleet to investigate the disappearance and try to recreate the spore drive technology that allowed Discovery to time travel. The eclectic group of scientists battle with each other, stave off espionage and sabotage, and eventually collaborate to recreate the tech. But the end result is a group becoming inextricably linked and traveling through time together as they must work together to figure out their way back home. Think Trek meets Better Off Ted meets Sliders.
All right, Mariah.
All right, so Star Trek Ancient Civilizations is a show that has to use the past in order to preserve the present. It is a show, it's a 1-hour Star Trek drama that takes place on a ship that is exploring ancient civilizations once thought to long be forgotten, which has consequences that will continue to affect civilizations into the future.
All right, sweet. And mine was called Star Trek Ghost Ship, in which a Latina Starfleet admiral goes back in time to assemble a badass crew of covert agents, including Rolaren, Kalar, Garrick, and 2 new characters. And it's basically Minority Report meets Star Trek. Obviously the best one.
We'll see. Let's see how they voted.
Okay.
Drum roll.
All right. And the winner, the most popular pitch of all those 4, at 57%, gaining 57% of the vote, is Star Trek Ancient Civilizations from Mariah. Congrats.
Oh, thanks.
Great job, Mariah.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, good job.
It's the one I would have voted for, actually. I thought it was good.
More than half voted for Mariah, and
That's super
we
cool.
definitely had people in the double digits voting, and tied for second place, each gaining 19% of the vote. Clyde, Star Trek Harmony, and Star Trek Ghost Ship. Yay, me and
Nice.
Clyde.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Should we even
So-
mention what's happening
Nope.
next?
Aw.
We keep going. Let's
And Dad fucking last with 5% of the
Aw.
vote. Star Trek Omega from Grant Davis. Yay, Grant!
Woo.
So
Here's your
only-
participation trophy.
Only my
Yeah.
mom voted for me? Mom, you were supposed to get Dad to vote for me too. Come on. Well, that's cool. That's fine. I mean, whatever.
Okay, and sometime in the near future, we're gonna write up a scene from the winner, Star Trek Ancient Civilizations, and we'll act it out for you people live on the air.
Mariah said she was going to write it, which works well
It's
because
true.
it was her own pitch.
Yeah, perfect.
I know. Now I'm just going to finish out this nice writing sample.
Yeah. That goes in your portfolio.
If you want to
Mhm.
make us costumes too, we'll totally wear them.
Oh, I'll think about it. I know Grant is
Depends
more of
on
the
the
costume
costume. Yep.
extraordinaire.
I'll whip something up.
Cool.
Okay, continuing with this looser episode, let's have some fun with these listener pitches. Listeners, viewers, you reached out to us at Star Trek Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and our $2 patrons, you sent us some great pitches on our Slack group, and it's time to see what you got. But first up, we have a call from a listener who pitched a show, so I'm going to play that. And let's check it out.
Hey, Star Trek Pod. This is Caitlin. I was calling to give you guys my show pitch. So my show pitch is Star Trek Tarsus. This would flesh out the events surrounding the original episode Conscious of Kings. It would deal with a 13-year-old James Kirk on Tarsus 4. It was a colony that the food diminished because of a fungus that killed lots of the food supply. And because of that, the governor ended up having to decide who lived and who died based off of his own personal laws of eugenics. Some of the characters would be Kirk, Thomas Layton, Kevin Riley, Hoshi Sato, and possibly captains from relief ships that were trying to bring supplies in. It could also have Theric and Amanda, who are dealing with diplomatic relations during the time, since Theric is the ambassador to Earth, and this was a human colony. Thank you guys, and I really enjoy listening to your show.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. She wants
Thank
a
you.
show set in Tarsus 4, and I'm looking up Tarsus 4 in Memory Alpha. In 2246 on Tarsus 4, an exotic fungus destroyed most of the colony's food supply, like she said. This sounds like a job for Brian Fuller.
It sounds like a job for Paul Stamets.
Paul Stamets. Well, Brian Fuller is the guy who came up with the. He's very, very obsessed with fungi. But
He's a fun guy.
He loves a
He's a fun
good
guy.
a good mushroom.
yeah. Mariah, I know you're the one who watches more of the TOS series. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with that episode where Kirk goes to Tarsus 4?
You know, I could not quote it off the top of my head. I'm sure I've watched it at some point, but I think young Kirk is always something that's fun to explore as he's learning and coming up with his very distinct personality. I also just think adolescence co-conspiring with this very heavy topic would be very interesting. I often think we get a lot of stories told from the perspective of the adults, but I would be really interested to kind of see this played out from a kid's perspective.
Yeah,
he would
Home
be,
Chickie.
He'd be 13 years old.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Home Chickie says this is a good idea. I think it's interesting not only because Teen Kirk sounds like fun, and Teen Kirk tripping on mushrooms. If you can work that in, that's cool too. But I think she mentioned one of the characters would be Hoshi Sato, who I believe was one of the more interesting characters from Enterprise, a show I don't typically like, but Hoshi's pretty dope.
You know, this sounds like it would be a pretty interesting show marketed toward kind of teenagers. So kind of a
Like a CW
I don't know, like
show?
a Disney Plus Star Trek
Mm.
show.
So Chupi says, talking about the pitch for this show, it's why I love the Lorca Giorgio book Drastic Measures, and I believe Drastic Measures. I haven't read it yet, but I just got my copy in the mail the other day because
Nice.
Chupi recommended it, and I was reading the back, and the plot synopsis sounds very similar to the call we just heard. So that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to diving into that. And it's a book about that pairs up Prime Giorgio and Prime Lorca, and it's a prequel to Discovery Season 1.
Oh.
That sounds
Interesting.
interesting.
So I looked up some screenshots of the Conscience of the King episode from TOS, and I do very much remember this episode because it's this guy who's disguised in a Shakespeare troupe traveling like Shakespearean troupe. And Kirk essentially is like, "You're not who you say you are." And if you just listen to our Patreon episode, you would maybe be clued in on the fun Trek trope of them having people show up in disguises pretending to be other people, but instead they're war criminals.
Yeah, indeed. Clyde Chupi says it would be a great teenager show. I think so too. I think that was a good point. Who would you get? I know you're big on pilots and showrunners. Who would you get to showrun this show?
You know, I'd have to get somebody who's done it before. So I'd be thinking about somebody who's done something like The OC or something like
A Degrassi, maybe.
maybe a Degrassi.
Get the
I mean,
the
if you get
Duffer
somebody who-
Brothers from Stranger Things.
I
There you
mean, that actually be a great one. That would give it some sci-fi appeal to it. Somebody who's got some sci-fi chops. I think it depends on where you want it to go. I don't think you want this to be a soap opera. I think you want it to be more like Stranger Things, like something much more dramatic. So yeah, I think it would be great. You just set it kind of in that time frame, and then I think you'd open up a brand new kind of target audience.
It's interesting that you mentioned the showrunner of the OC, Josh Schwartz. because at one time last year, maybe the year before last, and maybe still, he was attached to a new Trek show about Starfleet Academy,
Hmm.
writing and show running it and producing it. So we'll see if that happens.
I
Interesting.
That'll be
mean, and
interesting.
if I'm honest, it's also because I've been going back and watching the OC on HBO Max. So,
California.
hey,
Oh, Marissa.
it's
Okay.
one of those great shows to fall asleep to.
All right.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of pitches from listeners on Twitter, on Instagram, and we might not be able to get to them all, but we're going to get to as many as we can. So Grant, why don't you take this first batch since you're the Trek newbie out of all of us? And these are the ones I don't think you need a lot of Trek knowledge to really like explain.
So I'm capable of maybe putting a cell on, or at least reading through the
Yeah.
pitches.
You can read, right?
And I made graphics for these, except
Yeah.
for I think
Yeah.
I failed to make a graphic for that call-in one. I didn't know the title. I didn't know there was a call-in one. I
Oh,
switched that
yeah.
in the notes.
That kind of came in last minute. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it didn't come in last minute, but I found it last minute. So
Ah.
because all our calls are going to my spam. So
Oh no.
there you go. Yeah.
Well, this first pitch comes to us from Karen, who has titled this Star Trek My Two Moms.
Love it already.
My Two Moms is a dramedy of the madcap adventures of Elnor, the boy murder nun, and his two moms, Raffi and Seven, aka Seven of Nine, bound together over concern for Elnor's grief after Picard's death. Spoiler alert. Raffi and Seven take him under their wing. A surprise affinity springs up between the two as they guide their young protege through life in the outside universe. This of course would be the series I propose if we never get season 3 of Picard. Okay.
Oh,
I-
so okay.
Yeah, so Picard would die at the end of season 2.
Got it. So this isn't Elnor like rejecting the Gollum version of Picard.
No, that's another spoiler alert right there.
Yeah.
Um,
Spoilers for Picard season 1.
Yeah, she says
He
before
dies, now he's a Gollum.
She says before COVID, I always thought there was room for something like a Starfleet Medical, but frankly, I'm a little tired of hearing about strange diseases right now. So yeah, Star Trek, My Two Moms. What do you guys think?
I mean, I always love some good family drama shows. I also think it would be fun to see this spin as like the next step of. Did y'all watch when Carmen Esposito and Rhea Butcher had the show Take My Wife?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Anyway, I could see this have that sort of vibe where it's based in some realism, the realism of our Star Trek universe, and then some fun comedy bits thrown in there. I also just love any time comedy is written for Seven of Nine because
Mhm.
it's so dry and so wonderful.
I mean, look, I watched Boston Public, so which tells you,
Starring Jerry Ryan. Yeah.
which means I'm watching pretty much anything Jerry Ryan's in. I'm a fan, so I think this would be fun. To Mariah's point, I think comedy Trek could be really interesting, and if you promise me that Elnor gets to kill people with that sword, I'm all the way in. Comedy and some sword fighting, that's perfect.
I love that it would be called My Two Moms because Elnor's like 24 and he still lives at home with his mom. I think if the comedy comes from him just being like a stunted adolescent loser who all he knows how to do is like play with nunchucks and swords and they're just constantly like disappointed by him, I think that would be great.
The idea that there's this Arrested Development
Mhm.
of this also murder machine that he is. Like, what's his body count? The dude killed so many like people just like on the board cube. You guys ready for the next one?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. This next one is called The Rikers.
Oh,
This one comes from someone anonymous on Instagram, and the whole pitch was, I want a Riker family show with a wild girl of the woods, and lots of pizza, lots of bunny corn pizza.
and
that's
you
it.
can't compete with the Riker beard.
I
amazing.
guess
one.
it's just kind of like some feel good Little House on the Prairie, the Rikers kind of drama of them living on this planet and like making do.
The one reason I would love to see this, I mean, it would be fun, but the one reason I would love to see this is because I think in that episode of Picard, when we saw the Rikers together, that is the deepest picture of Deanna Troy that we've ever seen. I think Marina Sirtis did the best job she's ever done playing Deanna Troy, and we just got a lot from that character, and it felt so genuine and good. And I wanted to spend more time with her, and of course, I wanted to spend more time with Riker. He's always fun, and Jonathan Frakes is a great presence on screen, and he's quite sexy. But Marina Citrus, man, I want to see her, or Sirtis, I want to see her on screen a lot more. And I would just call this Star Trek Counselor Troy, and then I'll watch it. Or Troy's family, like Valerie's family back in the day, or the Hogan family.
Maybe she is like the modern Frasier, where it's like we get to see her counseling people day to day, and it's all of the fun things that happen from her clients.
Oh yeah, it's like that show with Gillian Anderson. Is it Sex Education?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where
Totally.
she's like a sex therapist now, but her family gets involved in everything. Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you guys like the Riker's kid? Did you like her backstory and her presence? Would you like to see that more fleshed out on
She
maybe
was
more
easily
episodes
one
of
of
Picard?
the better kid actors I've seen on a television show.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
usually are just like overly precocious or just like too jaded by something. I don't know. She had that youthful energy that just felt kind of natural. So I liked her.
Yeah, I thought that there was so much here that you could mine for a spinoff, right? And Mike, to your point, the Deanna Troy character, there's just so much you can do with that. Even now that she's, not on a ship, I think this would be pretty interesting. To me, it's more like a Growing Pains meets Star Trek. That's kind of how I see this. Only Troy is the counselor.
Some of us are middle aged, listener. We know what growing pains is.
Hey, I watched
Look it
Growing
up.
Pains.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, the Rikers. I think that's a pretty popular choice in the Slack. I think, and I'm trying to remember the daughter's name, and Marge says she believes it was Kestra. Is that right?
That does sound right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I liked her whole made up language and made up world that she kept going, that connected her to her brother who passed away. I thought
She's
that
like a
was a nice
prodigy, right?
touch.
Like a linguist prodigy.
Yeah, and it would be great to see her development over the years.
Hmm. Agreed.
Agreed. The
Ready for
Rikers,
the-
it's a hit.
You guys ready
like
for
it.
the next one?
Let's do it.
I think Clyde, you're taking over this next one.
Yeah,
This one's.
can you
yes,
take these
this one's-
few? These are a little more
I'll take
Trek
a few.
advanced.
All right. This one's called Star Trek Rebirth. All right. So it is set before First Contact, the movie. So our first contact with the Vulcans.
Right.
The show focused on several people worldwide who are attempting to help unify and heal the people of Earth in the wake of World War III, themed on grassroots efforts of community building and advancement in the face of adversity. As these people across the world unify their efforts, the roots of a worldwide government take hold. The first season ends with the world learning the news of the first contact with the Vulcans and the first human to travel at warp speed. The following season see the birth of.
Ellipsis. We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
And this is we got this on Twitter from Chris Crass. I think this is a kick-ass pitch because I really love the dramatization of the first contact in the First Contact movie, where Zephyrin Cochrane has to rebuild his warp ship with the help of Riker and Geordi and Barclay and the rest of the Trek crew because the Borg have destroyed it. And just seeing them on the ground it's in Star Trek's past, but it's in our future when this is happening. It's just a fertile ground to visit because I think it was after like World War III, so things are a little post-apocalyptic, but on the precipice of coming back up, kind of the way we are now. And I think just exploring that would be great, and I think that's what he wants to do with this show.
It feels to me like it's Star Trek meets Firefly meets The West Wing.
Right on. And we
right?
have
Which
we have
is kind of interesting.
we have Chris in the chat here.
Oh, nice
Chris.
job, Chris.
Yeah, really like
Good
it,
job,
Chris.
Chris.
And we have another one of Chris's coming up next.
Mhm.
Okay, so this
So-
one's called. Oh, go ahead, Grant. Jump in.
Yeah.
I just had the question about so World War III is kind of known in the canon of Trek, like there was a
Mhm.
World War III, and that's kind of what ultimately resolved and unified everyone and formed Starfleet.
Not necessarily. There was a great world war and famine and lots of badness and reconstruction after the war, and people were divided. But what brought everyone back together was a scientist, Zefram Cochrane, created the first warp-capable ship, and he did a test flight. And while he did his test flight, the Vulcans were flying over Earth, and they picked up his warp signature. And the Vulcans, most
They
basically
decided they
the
could make first contact.
exactly, yeah, the threshold for making first contact with the Vulcans is, you have to be warp capable. So they made first contact with Zefram Cochrane after the ship went warp, and that really just unified everyone together to make a better planet and to create the Federation in tandem with the Vulcans. And then along came Starfleet, and Star Trek was born.
Tight.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and not to freak you out, but it looks like the World War III happened in 2026. So
That seems completely likely.
Seems about right.
If not, maybe a little bit late.
Are we sure it didn't start in 2020?
that's not scary at all.
The Cold War started in 2020 for sure.
You guys ready for the next one then?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this one is called Star Trek: Son of Kahless. Now, Kahless happens to be one of my
Yeah.
favorite Vulcans of all time. So you had me
He's a
at
Klingon.
the title.
Did you say
Yes.
Vulcan?
Oh, sorry. I see. Now you got me acting like Grant. Klingon. One of my favorite Klingons of all
Here's how you
time.
know the difference. The Vulcans have the
Ah.
pointy ears, and the Klingons have the two dicks.
Okay, I did not know that about Klingons, Mike. But
Yeah,
take
we
your
saw it in
word for
Discovery.
All right, so this is Star Trek: Son of Kahless, a Game of Thrones style drama about the struggle for power over the Klingon Empire by the great Klingon houses, potentially set within a canonical era pre-human contact or even post-Picard. Interesting.
I think we got
That's
some of
expensive
this.
for the makeup department.
Yes.
Yeah, we got some of this vibe in some Discovery episodes. I felt some of those Klingon episodes that focused on the, they were kind of Game of Thrones inspired, kind of fighting for that throne. I think this would be cool.
Yeah, I always like. I think it's interesting when you can take, sort of historical fiction and swap it on its head. Taking all the power struggles that happened throughout, Victorian Europe, but then if you could do it in a sci-fi way, which is what this feels like it could be. If it's like the Tudors, but with Klingons, like I'm in.
No, it's Game of
I-
Thrones with Klingons because you got to see those two dicks.
What?
Jeez. I think as long as you can have a thread around the House of Moog, right? So you have to have something that kind of anchors us back to Worf, who's the Klingon that we kind of know most. And then, I mean, there's some things that you could do in there with some of our new Klingons, right? So I think if you do that, give us someone to look for, almost like a kind of an episode 1 Anakin Skywalker. I think it'll help.
Would you guys want these Klingons in this show to look like Discovery Klingons or TNG Klingons?
Which one had the two dicks?
Oh my
Well, I guess
God.
they all do, but it's
Some of you
confirmed that the Discovery Klingons did.
I know that Mike's just angling for us to read his fanfic, and I'm so sorry, Clyde. I ever put that on you. I was wrong.
It's
It was
obvious.
actually Geik Marcia, apparently. who was
I
doing
don't
this
write it.
fanfic.
I only read it. I don't write
Uh-huh.
it. I
I'm
only
gonna
read
go
it.
search Tumblr for a Geik Garcia after this.
Oh, Geik.
I think I'd want, honestly, I'd go TNG Klingons over Discovery Klingons.
Oh, really? You like that style better?
this is gonna sound stupid, but it seemed more familiar.
Well, it was
Um,
closer to human, which might, you can handle the expressions of their emotions a little bit better on their face, right?
Yeah, my only complaint with the disco Klingons, it's feels like it's hard for the actors to come through, their expressions to come
Not
through and
not
under all
all of
that
them can be
makeup.
Doug Jones, just working
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
prosthetic.
To your point about the House of Moog, Clyde, Chris Rogers says, who came up with this pitch, says, yes, I was thinking that the House of Moog, either in its history before Worf or legacy after, would be interesting.
Yeah, I think honestly, we never got enough of the House of Moog before Worf,
Yeah.
right? Like it was always said that it was this great house that at its height was betrayed and kind of scapegoated. I mean, I'd be all for seeing that, seeing its rise to power, and then ultimately the betrayal. I that would be something that I'm completely on board with.
I have
Yeah.
to say, hearing all of these references to like House of Vogue and the houses of whatever, are any of y'all watching the HBO Max show Legendary? It's all of the
Not
like
yet.
ballroom houses, so it's like where voguing came from. And so in my mind, I'm now
Oh,
just
right.
picturing like Klingons voguing down a runway, and I'm like, maybe this is the show we need.
Isn't that what Pose is about as well?
Yes, Pose is also about, it's a fictionalized version of the ballroom scene. But these
right
are
on.
actual like ballroom houses, like the
Yeah.
House of Ninja and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool.
Nice.
Oh, House of Ninja sounds awesome.
Oh,
If I knew
dope.
nothing about it, like the House of Ninja sounds awesome.
Thumbs up on Sons of Kalis. Get Ron Moore back in to write it since he created so much of the modern Klingon history. I'm in. I'm in. Clyde, do you want to get to the next one?
Okay, I'm not sure if this is the title or the author. It just says from Dr. Butt Lasers.
Dr. Butt Lasers is the author.
Okay. So the title is Bashir and O'Brien.
This is just a title
PI.
I made up because they didn't have one. And I
So
think it would probably be PIs. I
Yeah.
probably should have
PI.
put an S at the end.
All right, so this is a noir detective story with an older Bashir and a O'Brien, so Miles O'Brien. Now that Molly and Kiriyoshi are older and on their own assignments in Starfleet, you can have them solve mysteries using O'Brien's engineering know-how and Bashir's genetic advantages.
Hell to the yes. This is
These
for the
are-
DS9 fans. This is for the DS9 fans. This is for the Calmini fans. This bromance between Bashir and O'Brien that started to develop midway, I think, through DS9, and then just full on became a romance by the end of the show, where O'Brien was confessing to Bashir that he kind of loves Bashir more than he loves his wife. Like, that's like canon, and I would love to see these two together as old dodgy old men using their experiences like through all the wars they've been through and just solving mysteries in Starfleet, man.
You know, this is so interesting to me that a side character transporter engineer on TNG has graduated all the way up to spin-off level. That's kind of amazing to me.
Yeah, Miles O'Brien started out in TNG and he was just the guy at the transporter room.
Yeah,
And
this
like
whole move was this right here. That's it. That was his move.
and yeah, every 10 episodes, every 6 episodes, he'd come out and like push up the transporter and send Picard on his way.
I don't
And-
even know if he originally had lines. I think he just
Yeah, sometimes he did. And maybe once or twice there was like a full episode where like when his wife was having the baby and I think Data delivered the baby or Worf delivered the baby, like that was a big Miles O'Brien episode. And then the producers realized, fuck, Colomini's really good. And he started taking off as an actor doing indie movies like The Snapper and what was
Con Air.
it? The Commitments. And then he went on to Con Air.
Con Air, yes.
So Hollywood took notice and they were like, we got to get this guy in a spinoff and give him a bigger role. So they brought him over to DS9 as one of the main cast members and became a beloved Star Trek actor. and cross my fingers. Hopefully, one day we will see old Colin Meaney and old Alexander Siddig in Star Trek. Bashir and O'Brien. PIs.
Okay. Is Bashir?
Did
Was
you
he a
actually
robot,
write
though,
this,
or
Mike?
something?
Is this you again?
Are you Dr. Butt Lasers?
Mike's putting a hard sell here.
I mean, that's a great name. I wish I came up with that name.
But what's the deal with Bashir? Is he? I thought maybe he was like a hologram doctor or something.
He's genetically engineered. In terms, he has a superior. He's kind of like Khan. You know, Khan was genetically engineered.
Okay, so he's Captain America, like super soldier kind of thing.
He has a genetically engineered intellect, but he's not necessarily a super soldier. He does have a genetically engineered physique, but he's not a superhero. He can really just like maybe run 10 miles without getting out of breath.
What the fuck? That is
Yeah.
a superhero.
Well, he's not Captain America, but he's approaching that. And
I
the
can't take
interesting
my
thing
trash
about
to the corner without getting winded.
about Bashir is that they didn't reveal that he was genetically engineered to like season 5 of DS9. It's a spoiler. Sorry.
Now I'm not gonna watch the show.
Nah,
Now.
I mean, I keep doing this podcast. Mike is definitely convincing me to go back and watch DS9.
everybody watch DS9. My
He's
idea.
slowly doing all of this to all of us.
Like every week, it's just a little bit more.
This
I'm
is
like,
slowly going to become a DS9 podcast. Just you watch.
2 years ago, I was like, nope. I'm glad you like it, Mike, but I'm good. I've seen it once. I'm never going back. And
Look
2
at
years
this
later,
picture.
I'm like, it's a great picture.
This
Grant, you
picture
did a
that Grant put
fantastic
up
job.
is Colm Meaney and Bashir dressed up as World War II fighter pilots.
I don't know what was going on.
This
with
happens
but I
on
was
the
like,
show.
"That's
It's
those
great.
two actors.
I
I'll
mean,
take
Grant, not for nothing, this image, this graphic does make me want to watch the pilot to Bashir and O'Brien PI.
that.
Right on.
Awesome.
good design.
Okay. Mariah, as you are, I think, our most literate Trekkie, as we've seen from your pitch, why don't you take the next one?
Yeah, I was gonna say, reading this one in prep, I was like, this person is in the house of Mariah. So this is from Takeko, and it is called Star Trek Frontlines. So Trek meets ER meets MASH. I'm like already in. That's all you really
Yeah.
had to tell me. With some UN peacekeeping / humanitarian work thrown in. The series tells the stories of the emergency and triage unit of the Starfleet Field Hospital on the planet Romit 2 in the Federation colony of Uma. The year is 2399, the year in which Star Trek Picard takes place. The place is in a far outer rim of the Alpha Quadrant, as far away from the core of the Milky Way as you can get, but still technically be in the Milky Way. The time is 2 months since the Federation negotiated a ceasefire between the Uma Liberation Front, which had been waging a guerrilla war with the occupying forces from Krita, the colony on the neighboring planet. We find out later that the Krita are actually religious extremists who had originally been part of the Uma colony. A month ago, a Starfleet-led humanitarian mission arrived. The scene is still chaotic, the colonists shell-shocked and suspicious of anyone who they think is not on their side. Uma's children and most of the adults have known nothing but war. This puts the Starfleet mission and its staff in situations which are awkward at best and dangerous at worst. Obviously, it is immeasurably worse in the hospital, particularly in the emergency and triage unit, where the tensions are high at the best of times. The hospital staff is a mix of Starfleet medical officers and ranking Federation civilians, as well as some colonists, mostly from Uma, but also from Krita, making the work environment volatile. Some characters. Again, this person is after my own heart.
Good stuff.
Captain Satuk, a physician from Vulcan. He spent most of his career in humanitarian medicine, either in the field or managing field missions at Starfleet Medical. Logical, but also capable of leaps in intuition based on his long experience in the field. However, he's been away from the field for the last 5 years, so his by-the-book tendencies sometimes pits him against his more freewheeling colleagues. Actor suggestion, Peter Capaldi from Doctor Who.
Hell yeah.
Commander Sion Myreed Flynn, a physician specializing in virology and xenopathology. She spent much of her career in shipboard service and was awarded the McCoy Medal for research related to de-assimilation of Borg drones.
That's
She-
cool.
She is an unrepentant optimist, silly to a fault, and a good friend with common sense. Her sharp mind, often entertaining unorthodox thinking to solve medical mysteries. Oh man, this person is after my heart. Actor Gillian Anderson.
Jillian can be in anything,
Gillian can
everything.
Literally, I will watch anything with Gillian Anderson. All right. Lieutenant Commander Nordak, who is a surgeon, a young adult. Nordak was one of the millions of Romulans evacuated before the supernova destroyed his home planet. A refugee life interrupted his higher education. It was only his determination to escape the camp and make something of himself which attracted the attention of the camp's medical staff. He exhibits street smartness and an unpolished exterior, which belays a hard-won, disciplined mind and a cool precision and manual dexterity required of a trauma surgeon. Actor suggestion, Michael Beach. Lieutenant Lelis Campbell, emergency medicine specialist. Unlike the other physicians, she did not attend Starfleet Medical Academy. She earned her degrees on her native Alpha Centauri, then worked for years as a shipboard doctor for hire for commercial traders. She is thus well-traveled and knowledgeable about humanoid and non-humanoid life and the many ways that they can be injured or fall ill. She applied for a commission on a lark and was accepted into Starfleet Officer Training School. She is worldly in her attitude and outlook, slightly jaded and cynical, and being new to Starfleet life, struggles against bureaucracy and regulations. Often ended up on the captain's bad side. Actor Natalie Emmanuel from Game of Thrones. Also
Who is
used
she?
voice.
Stop this right now.
Woo!
Who is she on Game of Thrones?
She was Khaleesi's like right hand lady.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in the like rom-com Hulu series they did. Four Weddings and a Funeral?
Which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you very much.
Super cute. All right, y'all. There's only 2 more characters, so I'm going to keep going.
Yep.
Lieutenant Dalos Rax, pediatrician, originally from Ardania, TOS, the Cloud Miners. He is clearly easy on the eyes and comes off as a suave and nonchalant with a seductive smile and roaming hands. He was disciplined with a demotion on a related matter in his previous post on Deep Space Nine, and has since had struggled with relationships as well as with substance abuse. He volunteered for this mission in an attempt to redeem himself, so he takes risks that he doesn't always need to take. He didn't know what he would be working with women who had. He would be working with the women who had disciplined him, which makes him an even more on edge. Actor suggestion, Matthew Reese from A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And finally, we have Lieutenant Bizik Zayal, a toxicologist in forensic medicine, a Bajoran native. She was born a few years after the Cardassian occupation. She is the first in her immediate family to finish university and first in her extended family to earn a postdoctorate degree. She worked in her internship on Deep Space Nine, then 2 years of shipboard service before her assignment. She works hard to maintain her professionalism, even as she worked with the man who made the mistake of harassing her. Actor Polly Perrette from NCIS. So just like hats off, this was an incredible pitch. Like,
Incredible.
Yes.
holy smokes.
Yeah. Marge, Takako is actually in the chat, and Marge says, "Wow, you know your stuff. This sounds
Yeah.
great." I got to parrot that remark. This does sound great, and you do know your stuff. Nice job.
This casting, I mean, yes, a
All
Star
over
Trek
it.
medical drama is fascinating with no names, but a Star Trek medical drama with this cast,
Mm-hmm.
it could potentially be the best Star Trek franchise to date.
And the inherent drama and the inherent conflict between these characters just sounds like something that would be really crackling on screen.
Yeah, and I think you could easily draw upon folks who've been show running or writing on like Grey's Anatomy, and if you brought them
Mhm.
into like another like a split room between that and some good Trekkie knowledge, like it would be so much fun, so dramatic. Think of all of the cool, weird medical stuff that happens on alien planets. You know, like if you can come up with half the crazy stuff they do on Grey's, like people buried in cement or poles sticking through 3 people and they have to operate around them, like what happens when an alien accidentally shoves his hand through another person? I don't know.
I mentioned Takako was in the chat, and she says her character Rax is modeled after Doug Ross, George Clooney's character
Yes.
on ER. Yeah.
Nice.
Totally. Anyway, hats off to you. If you
Yeah.
ever
Yeah,
want to
that's good.
chat like screenwriting and you want to write a scene, please hit me up. I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah, this is brilliant. Thank you so much for submitting that. Okay, I'll read the next few.
Thank God.
These are a few from our patrons. First up is James. And do we have the next slide? It's Star Trek Ward 157.
Nice.
All right. So it's a 10-episode limited series. In a Starfleet medical dementia ward, patients are secluded from the general population with a range of mental health issues, stemming primarily from dysphoria. Tracked by Section 3, the agency that regulates chronal incursions and other activities, time travelers are recovered and placed in Ward 157 to protect the timeline from undue interference.
Ooh, I
Like
like
that.
time travel stuff.
Mhm.
The overall arc is centered on the newest arrival, who came from 1 month in the future, moments before the imminent destruction of the Federation. A Vulcan, he or she is also the chief medical officer of the facility, now directly treating themselves, and the story is told from both perspectives.
Dope.
Wow. Each episode would feature a patient or a healthcare worker and flashbacks to the chronal incursion events that brought them there, the lives stolen from them, and their ordeal in the ward. Most workers have been involved in an incursion and cleared by Starfleet to work in a classified capacity. Themes are ethics in mental health treatment, shifting and unreliable memories, and a philosophical look at existence and timelines. The patients are conventionally unwell,
Correct.
but they are disaligned from their timeline, and the ward perpetuates a narrative and medications that keep the patients disoriented and confused, lest the patients enact any event that would further disrupt the now catastrophically fragile timeline. Dude, I love this.
This is so cool. It's giving me very like mental health 6 feet under vibes, you know?
Mm.
It sounds like Lost meets Legion, the FX
That's what-
show.
I was thinking that too, Mike. I was thinking
Mhm.
it's got some Legion vibes to it.
Yeah, but the Lost vibe in terms of the episode centering on a character and flashing back to the temporal incursion that landed them in this ward and how they're dealing with being in there. And of course the Legion stuff with the unreliable narrator, kind of Mr. Robot-esque as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Very
It
cool.
kind of reminds me of like the Travelers on Netflix.
Netflix.
Oh yeah, the
or,
Canadian show.
or 12 Monkeys, in that like people are coming back in time from a future that is problematic, or at least this lead character would be. In which case, I kind of just want a lot of the narrative to focus on the doctor that's treating themselves from the future,
Mhm.
and kind of dealing with that conflict of like, you would trust yourself from the future, and if your self is telling you there's this impending doom, or rather like the destruction of Starfleet and what that the ramifications might be for the future, that's fascinating in itself. Like I wonder what his idea is of how the other narrative threads of other patients like intertwine with that plot point, because if they're just digressing, I'm like, nope, go back to that one. That one seems like the primary like issue to resolve. The
This sounds like a
ticking clock.
job for Damon Lindelof.
I was thinking the same thing. This is interesting to me. I don't know that it's in my sweet spot of shows that I'd be like, I've got to sit down and watch that. But this is something that I think, as a limited series, you definitely have to peek in and see how it goes. I think this could be something. This could be event television.
Yeah, for sure. There's some fun stuff in the chat. K Young wonders, Wonders if Captain Braxton is in that ward. Mariah, I think you'll remember Captain Braxton, the captain of the time ship Relativity, who went
Indeed.
who had a
Yes.
little bit of the space madness.
He went very space mad. I was thinking after I saw that comment about how it would be cool to see some like Easter eggy characters kind of coming in and out of this ward.
I do like that a lot of these pitches aren't necessarily relying on previous characters or old characters or rehashing plots that we've already seen in Trek. These are really creative. I'm really enjoying this.
Marge asked what this graphic is. I would just say it's you can see the watermarks on it. It's some stock photo of a futuristic white hallway, probably just rendered in 3D that I just grabbed for a futuristic ward hallway. I don't know.
Nice. Yeah, it looks cool.
I liked it, Grant.
Thanks.
And now we have a really fun one from MagMag. In this one, MagMag cast some of us in this show
What?
and some of the other people who are our patrons. And Star Trek Menagerie is the name of this show. So I'm just going to read her synopsis. The USS Menagerie, an Intrepid class Starfleet training ship. The era is circa 2370s. So the Menagerie provides field study for sophomore cadets and advanced practical training for upper year cadets. The training program runs 15 weeks, thus 15 episodes. It includes hands-on ship experience, some simulated situations such as survival strategies and skills, and actual missions. For example, one episode will feature the exploration of an archaeological site, a premise that allows historians and cultural experts to geek out. Of course,
Crossover ep, maybe?
yeah, with ancient civilizations. Of course, this field trip takes a sudden dangerous turn, but the ability to interpret ancient art saves the day. All right. The training ship premise allows for multiple and diverse viewpoints of both students and officers. Perhaps a sort of Hogwarts in space. As we go along, we get to know the Professor
McGonagall's.
McGonagall's. There we go. As well as the Rons and Hermione's, sans the magic. The officer instructors provide consistency from season to season, while we meet a new set of cadets each season. The series is episodic, but the 15-week season is structured like an actual training program to build the cadets' skills, confidence, and experiences while developing officer character, backstory, interrelationships, etc. The pilot episode follows the new cadets onto the Menagerie as they find their way around and meet their instructors. Thus, the pilot ep introduces the ship officers through the students' perspective and, of course, gossip. We get to see ship areas like the quarters and recreational facilities, and as they make their way to some planet, the ship is boarded by some weird aliens who create engineering problems. Officers and cadets work together to figure out the language and culture of the aliens and to sort out the engineering repairs. Star Trek Menagerie features some very interesting characters. The portraits below, we don't have the portraits. Okay, so under communication, these are the characters. By the way, this premise sounds really cool. Under communications, counseling, and culture, we have the head of counseling and communications instructor, played by Karen, our own Karen, Lieutenant Tyrell. She's part Vulcan, part Romulan, and human, who was raised by her human grandmother and is obsessed with mid-20th century Earth design, architecture, food, and slang. Radical. She often replicates vegetarian hot dishes that imitate the food of the era that are horrible, and everyone groans when she shows up in the mess hall. But she's actually so nice, they go along. She does not eschew emotions completely. She's a conundrum, but her genetic makeup makes her particularly adept at seeing all sides of a personality. She's weirdly logical in stressful situations and playful in times of normalcy. And next we have communications supervisor and instructor of cultural studies, played by Mariah Gossett,
What?
Ooh.
an Alpha Centurion lieutenant commander. Mariah Gossett loves learning. I guess your character's Mariah Gossett too. Mariah
Nice.
Gossett loves learning and researching the languages of many cultures. She is also a faculty member of the Cultural Studies Division. She has a specialty in art history. Sounds like you're going to save the day in the pilot. Very nice.
Woo.
Ship librarian, played by Kara. So the Menagerie boasts one of the most comprehensive libraries in the Federation, thanks to retired Rear Admiral Carolyn Ann, whose passion for literature, research, and culture led her to retire from Starfleet administrative position to build her dream library on the Menagerie. While she is strict about library protocol, Admiral Kara is a favorite instructor of the students. Wow. Okay. And head of cultural studies, played by Phil Reardon, who's also a patron. So Lieutenant Commander Phil Reardon is an expert in musicology with a specialization in Romulan intermediate polyphony. As a joined trill, he has centuries of experience in composition and performance of the music of a wide range of cultures. He is well known as a frontman for the popular 2350s Earth Club band Dilithium Delight.
Wow.
Amazing.
It's
That's a
fucking
good
cool.
name. That's a good band name right there.
All right, I need some water. Who wants to read the engineering science officers?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Engineering and Science Chief Engineer, played by Angela Hopkins. It says, since its maiden voyage, Lieutenant Commander Angela Home Chicky Hopkins has been USS Menagerie's chief engineer. As a Betazoid woman, Lieutenant Commander Hopkins is very empathetic, even with machinery, which is why the captain insisted that she be the ship's engineer. Hopkins can hear the thoughts of others, but struggles to repress the trait. She's also an ardent social activist and makes sure the student concerns are always heard. Science Officer Astrophysics Department, played by Arthur Davis. The Astrophysics Lab is run by Lieutenant Burial Sabine, a Bajoran who got through the occupation thanks to the acknowledgement of his exceptional scientific mind, and to his distant relation with Vedic Burial. I don't know who that is. Lieutenant Burial joined Starfleet soon after the end of the occupation to continue his studies and expand his knowledge of astrophysics. Plasma Relay Diagnostics is going to be played by one Mike Garcia. Ensign Mike Garcia is in charge of running diagnostics on the plasma relays. He is a very handsome Bolian. I don't know about that. Who is shy and reserved, yet is a top martial arts expert and a great cook. Lieutenant Garcia has taken charge of the Exo-Kuran's martial arts training, and the captain occasionally enjoys Lieutenant Garcia's Bolian cuisine.
Like that.
Random red shirt, played by Grant Davis.
That works. Good casting. Good casting.
Ensign Grant Davis is an oblivious human red shirt. He is seen at least once per episode in the background, endlessly expendable. Ensign Davis always seems to return.
You're the Kenny.
Yes.
Oh no, someone killed Grant.
In the command positions, first officer played by Kung Hui. Executive Officer Commander Curran is a
Denobulian.
Denobulan, I think, right?
Who is obsessed with details and human baseball statistics. CDR Curran is invaluable in maintaining a ship's routine and enjoys watching baseball games with Captain Benjamin Sisko when the Menagerie docks at Deep Space Nine.
Another DS9 reference. I like
So
it.
many.
The ship's captain, played by Mag, aka Marge. Captain Mag is an old battle-scarred, bad-tempered Klingon of the House of Kato-Mag.
Yes.
She is a supreme tactical strategist, but unfortunately, she has zero people skills and a penchant for throwing things. Exo-Karen is invaluable in mitigating captain crew functions and relations. Around episode 10, we'll get into revealing backstory.
Mm.
And that's it. Those are the characters.
Leave
some
us
of
with
us
some
you may have
intrigue.
heard dropped in there. I feel like Clyde, you must have not gotten back to her about
That's exactly what happened, and that's on me.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah, she reached out to us on the Patreon Slack, and I guess Clyde was just too busy to take part.
I
But
would-
that's
I would
fine.
just like to say that
I
you could
talked to
join
her.
me
I
in being
just
a.
didn't quite respond. I thought I
Ah,
responded,
got
but I didn't.
Got
My
it.
bad.
I'd just like to say, Clyde, that you could join me in being a secondary random red shirt. We can both just die.
Two
No,
red
I'm
shirts
gonna
are
be
better
a
than one.
Q character. I'm gonna be a Q-like character.
There you go.
Alright.
There you go.
I don't
Yeah.
know what that means.
Somebody want to explain the Q to Grant?
Oh
Oh,
man,
man.
Not
we'll get
really.
there.
We'll
We'll
get
get
there.
there. I'm sure he's gonna show up again at some point.
Mag, this is awesome. It's so great that you incorporated us and everyone else on the Patreon and really everybody who tunes into the live streams into this. I'm trying to picture everybody uh, on the menagerie, and I love the idea of one of the main officers creating a library. And I wonder
Mhm.
if Mag, if you're in the chat, is this like a physical library? Because we know in Trek everything is networked and on the computers, but are we talking like a physical books? Like that would be amazing.
Mm. Maybe it's a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Because I imagine it would be cool to just have walls and walls of books as well as like crazy, like the screens that don't have backgrounds that they seem to love having all the characters swipe through.
Yeah. Marge says Clyde would be Marge is Mag, who came up with this this pitch. Clyde would be the chef.
That works.
/ Q character. I think we've established.
I like to
also.
cook,
Mhm.
and I
Like-
couldn't be any worse than Neelix, right?
Yeah.
I mean, true.
So I don't know if I'm going to. I think I'm all the like ancillary material and like all the pitches we got. If it's okay with you guys listening, I'm gonna just kind of put them together like in a blog post and put it up on the Patreon. Sorry if we didn't get to your pitch if you submitted one. There's only so much time, and there were so many pitches I might have like forgotten to gather some, but we really enjoyed reading all of these and receiving them and all the work you put into them. It made for a really fun show. Thank you so much. This was a blast. And oh yeah, I think Marge answered my question in the chat. She said the library would be a mixture of both digital books and old school paper books.
Yeah, I want to have that moment like Belle in Beauty and the Beast with like the ladder as she like scrolls through everything.
Just drifting across.
Yeah,
There you
just
go.
a slow drift across a bunch of books.
Okay, don't forget to go to patreon.com/Star Trek Pod to see these pitches for yourself. I will post a blog post with some of these images Grant made and some of the text that people submitted. And that'll be up in a couple days or a little later after this pod ends. That's patreon.com/Star Trek Pod.
And while you're over at patreon.com/Star Trek Pod, be sure to become a patron. Go ahead and join that at that $2 an episode tier. We put out about 2 episodes a month, so it's a pretty good deal. It's $4 a month, and you can join our exclusive Slack channel. We're putting out one a week now, aren't we? So
At least, yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, that's $8. So a little bit more, but I still think it's pretty worth it. Patreon.com/Star Trek Pod. We're also doing some really cool series. Mariah and Mike are currently doing the Badass Ladies of Trek. We're doing some movie reviews and more. So we are always trying to make it worth it. We try and keep you guys engaged and give you bang for your buck. So come help support us. We appreciate it. Patreon.com/Star Trek Pod.
And we will coming back at you live next Thursday at 9 p.m. Central. And we are going to finally get to our character breakdown of Tilly, which I know we had previewed a while ago, but sort of made a little shifty here. But while we're still waiting on Discovery, we'll pepper in some of these fun character breakdowns while we come up with some other fun, weird ideas.
All right. What's your favorite Tilly episode?
Can you pick just one? I mean, outside of
Watch
we
all
know
your favorite
everyone's-
Tilly episodes,
There you
Clyde.
go.
All the
Mike.
Tilly.
Also, just as a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram at Star Trek Pod. Feel free to tweet about the episode, please. And also, I want to shout out to Karen, who helps run our Twitter, and James Worm, who runs our Insta. So
Y'all
thank
are
you, James.
awesome.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you guys. And real quick before we go, I do want to give you guys one specific call to action. If you're listening or if you're watching, there's this little website called Reddit on the internet.
I think I've heard of it.
Have you heard of this? Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe so.
It's
I
new,
believe so.
right? It's like brand new. It's
I mean,
like
I just
came
heard
out
of it
last
the other week. Yeah,
I've heard it referenced as the front page of the internet.
that's right. Yeah, I think I read that on Blogspot about Reddit. Okay, there's some great Star Trek communities on Reddit. We've posted in there before. We're part of them. If you guys are on Reddit, or if you've been wanting to get on Reddit, please do, and let the Star Trek Reddit community know about our podcast, because I think we could. That's a place where a lot of people go to have some really constructive, positive conversations about Trek, and especially new Trek, and that's what we're talking about. So if you want to get on the Star Trek subs and let people know about Star Trek Discovery Pod, we would be eternally grateful. We want to keep building this community. And yeah, if you can just do that over the next several weeks, that would be great for us. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining us on Star Trek Discovery Pod. Visit StarTrekPod.co to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Clyde, where can we follow you online?
You can get me at Twitter at Clyde Haynes. You can also find me on the web at www.keyandclyde.com. That's KEI and Clyde.com.
Grant Davis,
At Baron Von Grant.
Mariah,
And I'm at Mariah Gossett. That's Mariah with a Y and a Gossett with 2 S's and 2 T's.
Some of you might have noticed I added my mother's surname to my name, Garcia. So you can follow me on Twitter at my new Twitter handle, Mike M. Garcia. Live long and prosper.
Bye.